Welcome back to another episode of the Sell Like a Leader podcast, the podcast for revenue leaders who are on a mission to cultivate a high-performing sales team within their organization. I'm your host, David Kreiger, founder of Sales Roads, America's most trusted sales outsourcing and appointment setting firm. And today, excited to bring you one of the most unconventional thinkers in outbound sales, Justin Michael. He's a former sales leader at Salesforce and LinkedIn and has built a methodology that has generated over $1 billion in pipeline across more than 200 companies that he's advised. His frameworks, from the Justin Michael method to combo prospecting, have been adopted by tens of thousands of reps and used at companies like HubSpot, Cisco, and DocuSign. Across his extensive library of published books, master classes, and tactical codexes, Justin has systematically mapped nearly every dimension of what it takes to win an outbound. Justin, welcome to the show.
Well, it's great to be here, and I appreciate the auspicious introduction. I was thinking back to 7 years ago almost, in January, before all this started, and before I wrote the book Tech Powered Sales with Tony Hughes, and we were talking about 2035 and the singularity. We were talking about buying and selling bots, and I always say, I predicted ChatGPT, and then I feel like Al Gore, like I invented the internet. So I did not do that, but it's wild how many predictions. I think you and I were talking years ago, maybe in 5 years ago, just to see it all playing out, this age of automation. And what's happening is there's a lot of slop and there's a lot of empty suits running around. So we're kind of needed as humans right now. Sales acumen and some of the techniques are becoming more and more manual and hand-rolled, artisanal outbound. I don't know if you're seeing that trend, but yeah, I'm excited to get into it today.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to get into some of your perspective on technology and how that's playing out in the tech stack, where things could be automated, maybe, as well as where we're over automating. But let's start with some of your basic premises for folks who aren't familiar with some of your work. And the Justin Michael method is built on a neuroscience backed premise that whatever feels natural in a sales conversation, you should do the exact opposite. So could you unpack that for us a little bit?
So Earl Nightingale was known for the strangest secret, that wonderful audio in the 50s. And he was also known for this quote that if you analyze an industry and look at what thousands of people are doing and do the opposite, that's going to be the most successful. So that's almost like a George Costanza, do the opposite. I think I ended a book like that. The brain is interesting. So Oren Klaff is a friend, and I've interviewed him, and I did a book literally called The Frame, about frame psychology. There are two elements to your brain, no matter how old you believe you are. There's the neocortex and the old brain, the amygdala and the crop brain, essentially. And so the main issue with the three form factors we use, if we just take email and cold calling, a cold call, you interrupt a person and you trigger the old brain, and they're in fight or flight or freeze. And you're trying to say the reason for my call, you're trying to hit them with logic, and they're in this place of fear. The main issue with email is that the human brain, it processes visually. It can't really see text. That's like when you're a 4 or 5-year-old kid, you're tracing letters with string to try to learn to read. But adults are no better. Sending emails, sending pictograms and emails is bad for the brain. If I tell you Starbucks, you think you just see coffee, brown liquid or black liquid. So I started doing visual prospecting, using Venn diagrams and compressed GIFs and custom GIFs and just giving visuals to the brain, which process 60,000 times faster. So I basically found that there are cold call openers that are far more effective than what we're doing now, and emails that are far more effective, and social selling patterns. I call a lot of this heuristics. David Hoffeld in The Science of Selling used this word. It's a computer programming word, which means shortcuts. And the reason I use that is because a template can just get copied, or a script can get copied. So what I'm looking for is axioms or laws or heuristics that govern the channels. And that's what I started doing, of a different way to do cold calls completely. It's goofy foot. I have a different way to do emails, even the frequency of email sequences. I have a very unique way of doing social selling that feels like chat flows, chat and grow rich. And I use a lot of visuals in my prospecting, and a lot of it does come from simple understanding of the brain and how divorced from that most popular techniques are. And then there's stuff just like power, dating dynamics and things in every other human system that make sense that for some reason sellers and outbound folks just don't use. For example, like if you went on a date and you're like, hey, can I have 30 seconds of your time to explain to you why you should stay with me here on this meal and date me again? They'd be like, that's a little creepy. But yet 99% of everyone who picks up a phone in the world, 5 million tech sellers, use a weak, low status opener and popularize it and believe it's good because their tone is good. They're like, it's all about tone. It's like, well, if you call someone and say, hey, you want to see my meth lab? It doesn't matter how good your tone is. So I love that one. So Steve Chandler, classic.
If you could, for cold calling, because you sort of brought that up, if you could give us maybe an example of how you would approach that differently, either through the neuroscience principles that you just laid out, and or the dating principles, because I know that's a lot with some of your new work. What are some examples of things that you think actually embody that and work better? Some of
Yeah.
these other openers.
If you do this opener and you have success with it, the first rule of my system is if you get a meeting, you're right. So if you call someone and sing a Justin Bieber song or tell a joke and you get a meeting, you're right. But for me, the permission-based opener, the PBO, is from the 90s, and a lot of like the big dog sort of 7-figure closer people don't use it and don't know why it's so popular now. So like, did I catch you at a bad time? Can I get 30 seconds of your time, 20 seconds of your time? This is a cold call. I hate making them. You hate getting them. This is a cold call. Want to roll the dice. So we're doing a lot of negative associations immediately in the first 5 seconds. Just the whole concept of calling a person and then saying the reason for my call and just pitch slapping and controlling the call in the front versus asking open questions and getting them to talk, like social Aikido. That doesn't really work. So like you'll never see neuroscience where by you talking, you win. So imagine this, 99% of every cold caller on earth in every vertical calls a person and talks for the first 20 seconds. This is the worst thing you can do. So I'm not using the permission-based opener, and I'm asking open questions. Get them to talk first and controlling the call with active listening. So already that is radical. That's an alien. I call it route, ruin, multiplied. I taught it to this kid at PandaDocs. He went and got President's Club 5 years in a row. Yeah, I usually just use someone's full name, the most beautiful sound in the human language, and then try to see if they're the person in charge of a thing, right? Because we're in this environment, like Gartner says, there's 11 stakeholders in every account. So I would just say, John Wilson, yeah, hey John, Justin Michael from Acme, just curious, who heads up your API management there? And he's like, oh, that's Chris Rogers. All right, can I talk to Chris? So I'm getting a lot of referrals off the top of a call. You know, I mean, there's this book called Cold Calling Sucks, where I would say the book sucks. People love this book. It sells very well, and just about everything in it just makes you mediocre on a phone and violates just about every law in neuroscience. And it's prevailing winds. So I've been writing books kind of to combat that.
That's great. And so, to that end, and maybe we could frame it in this perspective so that people keep on understanding your perspective on ways to approach these. A lot of your clients sell high ticket items, right? And so you have a formula, a 7-figure formula, which breaks down specific revenue ceilings that sellers hit. And so you, I think, call these the JMM 3 walls, right? And so tell us a little bit about what are these walls? And then using your methodologies, how do sellers break through them?
What's interesting is about 40% of salespeople, at least in the US, side hustle. So they're doing something to advise, or they have some kind of S Corp or LLC. This is more, you could apply this to direct selling, but this is more for people trying to do consulting, because I built my consultancy quite rapidly to the 1% level. And so I actually have a ton of clients now that are senior account executives or VPs of sales, and on the side, they're advising other companies. And there's all these moonlighting clauses, but 40% of Americans just do this because we need diversified income streams. So the interesting first wall, and this does apply to mainline selling, is nobody wants what you sell. Nobody wants coaching. Nobody wants appointment setting, right? And that's why when we do the studies, it takes 4 to 5 no's. On one call, the prospect says no to you 3, 4, 5 times before you get to the yes. So it's a fine line. Like, when do you honey badger and when do you push? Because you know the first's a brush off, the second's a recoil, the third is like pricing issues, right? So I went on LinkedIn, had 30,000 connections, 15,000 sales leaders, and nobody wanted sales training. that was weird. So I created these chat flow techniques called the fourth frame to kind of turn LinkedIn into a chatting platform, which got me through the first wall, got me through the no, and they became interested and they started talking to me. The second wall is nobody has any money. I guess this does work for selling, and that's because they hate to be sold, they love to buy. They like to decide. And we live in this budgetless world too, where like, where's the money coming from? It's not like the 90s where it's just check the procurement enablement budget. And we know this from SDR, right? You have to pull it from the marketing P&L. It comes from these weird places. And on an individual basis, when you're selling consultancy, you're doing consulting, who knows? They have to transfer money out of a brokerage account, sell some stock. You don't know. The third wall is interesting. That's more about when someone's working with you and they fire you because you succeeded. This actually completely applies to your business. We love the appointments that you're setting. It's amazing. We found someone just like you at Stanford. He's 24. He is your mini-me. I'm telling you, he's great. And we're going to like fire you and just insource this. And maybe it's because I have 30 years of experience and gray hair. Trust me, there's gray hair. And that's why it's working. Oh, he's amazing. He's a spitting image of you. It's like so you become a victim of your own success on the services side sometimes. And so this kind of applies more to services and consulting, but I can now see sharing it, how it also the first two are totally there for selling SaaS or AI or something.
And so with those walls, and going back to the book that you're working on right now, which is, and I think you sort of alluded to it earlier in our conversation, is trying to figure out how to make people chase you, right? And a lot of times, like the example you gave, we're doing these permission-based openers, we're lowering our statue. How do you coach your clients to flip that dynamic? Because I think most sellers feel that way. They feel like they've got to chase the person, they got to keep going after them. What do you mean by that? And how do you successfully flip people from a sales perspective, or is it really marketing that's coming into play here? Because I think a lot of people think of that more from a marketing lens and get those prospects to chase you versus us chasing them.
Yeah, so I think most techniques that you see on LinkedIn are what I would call transactional, fast closes, under 25 grand, right? Like PLG, these are low ticket, low ACV, TCV products, and they can be sold quickly, almost in an order taking manner with like, even this whole trend of high ticket closing is like that. What needs to happen is like indirection and subtlety and something not being so direct. So a concrete example is when I do a voicemail, I say, I'll follow up with a note. I never ask for the callback because the callback is needy. It's here's my number and if you have time. When I send a CTA in an email, I'm like, hey, if it makes sense to talk, how does your calendar look? Not here's my calendar, I'm available Tuesday and Thursday. It's like, they're like, well, hey, Justin, when you're available, so I've got the whole month wide open. My calendar is wide open. You're like, right, you're too available. So this stuff comes right out of human psychology and persuasion. I feel like Sandler had a flavor of this. He always said, don't spill your candy in the lobby, which has been interpreted like not giving it all away on the first meeting, holding one slide back, keeping them wanting more. There's also an idea of I'm hyper persistent, but then I have a concept of reaching and then withdrawing and having a rhythm and a pause, where a lot of people are just full on honey badger, or they're too elusive. They try once and then they wait and they think the other person isn't interested. I go into a lot of this within the latest few books, and it manifests in a lot of ways. But first off, the person on an identity level has to feel equal to who they're contacting, right? You can't be calling the decision makers and bowing down and being overly polite and fawning on them. And that's what's so weird about personalized emails. Dave, congrats on the new job. You're a CMO now. And they're thinking like, this is hell. I'm a CMO. I've got all this pressure. Everything's broken here. These people are not happy. And then everyone congratulates them. That doesn't make them want to buy from you. They want you to solve a business challenge or make their life easier, right, on a technology or business process level. So I can keep going on, but the parallels between human dynamics and relationships are spot on. You'd probably be better off studying psychology and things like dating and interpersonal relationships and then transposing it to selling versus just following blindly the sales de jour, the popular scripts.
Yeah. And I think it's a great analogy. And I think at the end of the day, people are only going to date you if it gives them value, if it's something that they want to do, if it makes them feel good. And so thinking through all those different dynamics in dating and how they can be applied to sales is an interesting prism. And would I do this on a date?
Like Steve Chandler says, needy is creepy. And so there's this new one that the wrestler bros have, the cold call sucks. It's this: you call and you say, hey, Dave, my name's been coming up a lot, huh? You've been hearing my name? It's like the cocky, like, you're going to call CFO or CEO and say that? And they're like, no, I've never heard of you. But what if you're at a famous company like Salesforce? You're like, you've heard of us, right? Duh, you're Salesforce. So like, there's no way that's going to go well. They're going to think you're conceited. My whole thing in all the techniques is service-based. You want to make the prospect the star, right? And if they're talking, you're winning. If you're using their full name. If you're very curious, they're going to flip the polarity. Yeah, so I've had a lot of fun with that, and 75% of the workforce is under 44. I'm 46. I'm the elder statesman now, so I've been doing a lot of research into millennial and Gen Z patterns, and the entire sales universe has adopted these 90s techniques, which is a bit shocking and weird. Try something different.
And so the millennial techniques, I think that goes back to some of your thoughts around turning LinkedIn into a texting channel. If you could play that out for us a little bit.
So first of all, sliding into DMs is a dangerous thing to do. So I think older sellers, we have a concept of like, what are the challenges? What's keeping you up at night? Tell me what's going on. I think people really don't want to sit in a private thread and explain what's wrong and open themselves up to being sold. So I tend to use a lot of reverse psychology. I tend to see what's the vision you have at your company, what's going right, what are you excited about. I try to get people to go toward explaining what is good, because then they tend to share what is bad. So I have this 4th-frame method, and it's essentially something personal, something professional, and then I can insert myself. And then I have this other cool 7-step process where we really orient around the North Star of the person, and then what's driving that, the why, and then what else they've tried. So I've isolated that buyer's buy. So when I was selling SDR services, the best thing they could say is, hey, we already use someone right now to set appointments in Costa Rica or the Philippines or Des Moines or whatever it is, or Reading, because then I knew they understood the process and they could buy. So I'm doing like all these crazy DM flows. Reach has been cut on LinkedIn by 95%. People are like, wow, you've got 60,000 followers, you barely post, you just put up a book a day, because I'm sending thousands of DMs. And I'm in constant communication with people. I would rather have 4 or 5 meaningful back and forths. The DM is the new cold call. The light is green, they're there.
Interesting. Let's slide in the last part of this conversation to where I think you alluded to at the beginning, and that's technology. And maybe you can also explain how you're able to keep up with that many DMs. Are you leveraging some technology to do it? But let me frame us in a few things that you've written about. And so I think first is the idea of TQ, a technology quotient, right? And so a lot of folks talk about IQ and take EQ. You talk a lot about TQ, among other things. And so can you explain what that is? And especially over the last few years, why is that important, and how do sales leaders think about that in the context of their teams and help improve the TQ?
Yeah, so I think the technology quotient idea came out of Psychology Today. Like many things, I wasn't the first person to think of this, but I popularized it for B2B, which the concept is you have IQ and EQ, and those can actually be improved, but you can improve TQ. So now we have almost a reverse argument. I go into a business and they're like, we want all the reps to be learning advanced Claude code and co-work. And it's like, okay, but none of them are cold calling and they're not speaking C-level. So all things equal, if you have strong selling capabilities and you're using sequencing and you're using automation and you're using AI, if the two sales teams that are competing are equal, that will give you a distinct technology advantage. So you do see that one smart kid on the team gets all the automation stuff, the tech part stuff, and becomes the head of RevOps. And then I was working with a company in England, and their reps weren't even sending the emails. That was all automated, all AI. It was pretty amazing to see it happening. But that's just, everyone should really be embracing and trying to pick the tech that they like. What I just described on the DM flows, you've got Expandy, you've got HeyReach, you've got Lemlist, you've got Dripify. There's a lot of automations now that you can use, Duck Soup on LinkedIn to do that, at least for the first touch, and then drop in. I think semi-automation is really the exciting piece now, where there's some tool that's blasting hundreds of emails, but then when the music stops, you jump in as a human to apply your expertise. I do a lot of stuff highly manual just to test flows, but also because I can break all the thresholds. If you get an automation tool on LinkedIn, you can send 50 messages a day, 40 maybe. I can send 200. It doesn't do anything to me because it's used to that. Mass email, is very tough now. It's 1,000 to get one meeting. You have to warm up 5 domains and 3 emails apiece, and it takes 6 weeks, and the domains get shut down. It is a full-time job getting to scaled email. Mass calling is kind of crazy because only 20% of people pick up. A lot of these parallel assisted dialer solutions, no need to name names, that it's gone too crazy with robocalling, like, 10 lines at a time out of wherever, Jamaica or wherever they do it. And now people are in enterprise accounts getting cell phones, slowing down, trying to get a point of view out of the AI and then calling. So I had this book, Cold Call Algo, that really goes into effective strategic enterprise uses of AI for responsible C-level type calling. So yeah, they keep saying we fully automated SDR. I'm like, I don't think so. And one famous company right now who had a big celebrity on, I guess one of my clients got their email in their own spam folder. So that was ironic.
So if people are trying to figure it out, there's so many tools. Like you said, you threw out a whole bunch of them. A lot has gotten harder, especially with email. Obviously, LinkedIn, there's only so many you can do if you're using technology. Where are you seeing the most effective use of technology? And if you're a sales leader, sort of confused, maybe you have used sequencing tools, you've used emails in the past, it's not really breaking through. In this day and age, where would you have people focus to try to figure out what their tech stack should look at? Are you still arguing that 75% of top of funnel should be automated, or should it be less than that nowadays? Should it be more? Like, how should people approach this?
I think back in 2017, we had the golden opportunity to automate 75% of the top funnel. While by the laws of physics, it's possible to automate the top of the funnel, it's unlikely now. We're actually seeing 50% or 30%. It's reducing. It's a great paradox. First thing that happened is if you want an AI to synthesize your voice, it can do it perfectly and it can call people. But the FTC and the TCIP made it illegal. This guy I know, Thomas Cornelius from Science, he had the first fully functional AI that could just do phone calls. Maybe a few people did it once. And now it's been banned. So it's not even legal to do it. Faxing people is illegal. You can't just in America send faxes. It's hilarious because people overdid it. Then we get on LinkedIn, and if you really want to hit the magnificent levels of LinkedIn automation, LinkedIn just shuts you down. You can do a little bit of it, but you can't go crazy in there. You hit throttles. So LinkedIn is controlled, the API is closed, and you can't do much automation. You can't really go too crazy now with these parallel assisted dialers or do 10 at a time or spam all these lists, because then you get deprecation of those numbers, even can have implications on your business. So now we have semi-automated, safe, responsible curation where the data side is really hard. I used to say just get Zoom Info and Lead IQ and a couple data providers. It's not enough. So I'm really interested in things like TitanX, the Joey Gilkey company, and they just bought FrontSpin. Have you seen this one? They have these giant data sets and AI, and they basically tell you who you can call. And it looks like even Connect and Sell is turning into a data company and helping to surface beforehand the channel specific. And that's how some of these vendors have been going out on the data side. It's like, it'll tell you they're likely to respond on LinkedIn or respond on email or it's sell or direct dial. So some Connect and Sell data I'll reference that blew my mind is they looked at 10 million numbers over the last few years, and they found that 50% of the meetings that were booked were fully navigated dials. So it was actually still from switchboards and IVRs and dial by name directories. And during the pandemic, it was a golden age because I would call you, it would go to your phone, it would forward to your cell. Everyone was remote, so they forwarded their machine. Cell phones are only 7% of the data set that you can buy. So this goal of finding cell phones isn't the way to go. 80% of the companies I've worked with probably 250 companies in the past 5 years. They're doing, the majority of the winning is happening still on the phone. So I'm heavy on voicemails, I'm heavy on cold calling still, a little bit of email, LinkedIn, hit and miss for certain industries, right? Like if you work in logistics, utilities, supply chain, like a lot of those folks are just not as present on LinkedIn. There's a CEO of a company called Reveneer, you might know him, Greg Casale, and his thing was like, he doesn't even start sequencing until he has a connect. Once someone picks up the phone, then he hits with all the other channels. So yeah, Cold Call Algo is the book I would say about the RevOps problem, about enterprise cold calling and how to integrate AI and the tools and the stacks. It's sort of a sequel to Tech-Powered Sales. And then my new one is really more fundamental. It's just applying dating psychology to the 3 channels. The channels we have are we have phone, we have LinkedIn, and we have calling. That's kind of still what we have, ironically.
Yeah.
What else is there really? I mean, DMs, even WhatsApp now, if I send 200, boom, it shuts me down for 24 hours. Now that's even regulated. And there was a loophole with 800 open profile emails. They cut that algorithmically now. And you can only add 400 people a month. Restrictions, closing the aperture. So yeah, I'm curious how you're handling this, but I would say being strategic, building really good lists, pre-verifying the data, measure twice, cut once. It's about quality prospecting now. I don't think the volume play is still here.
I think that's right. And so the two places that we really lead into and is on the data side and using technology to just have the best lists possible, both waterfalling, combining data, using AI now to verify every single company to make sure that they're the right ICP fit, figure out if we can surface good insights. Before, the SDRs needed to do that manually, or you didn't do it at all. Now there's no reason in the world not to have an agent for every single client that we have and even within those have sub agents to find the right insights and make sure we're calling the right companies as well as with the right targets, right? So having a really high powered tech stack on the back end for data to verify, target, and surface insights is huge. And then I think a lot of the work that you're doing in talking about how we interact, and this has always been true, but more true than ever since so many things have gotten shut down, is you've got to maximize every touch you have, every conversation you have, and make sure that it is as good as possible. And so that's where we have really leaned into with both technology and from a training standpoint.
Yeah, that's why I love my opener, because it's the route opener is going for a referral. So it's like the most venomous snake in the Australian outback, because the animal comes like this giant wildebeest and the snake is like this tiny snake, but it's so poisonous it could just knock it out because contact rates are really low. So if I get a contact rate, I'm just like, John Hughes, yes. Hey, John, are you in charge of X and Y? No, it's not me. Who is it? And I do these mapping and routing calls, and it's a different intention. It's not, let me sell you a product or let me get your time. It's just like, hey, there's like 22 VPs of marketing over there. Which one should I talk to about fraud analytics? And they tell me. I think a real big reason that these generations are hitting the PBOs is because it's just a simple template. It's you memorize a line or something. I think that the route technique that I teach is easy, but it's not as simple as a line. You just keep picking up the phone and going, did I catch you at bedtime? Did I catch you at bedtime? Just like you could just lean on it, like a pickup line. Did you just fall from heaven? Like something like, I want to roll the dice. So while there's comfort in that, I would also encourage people to think, well, if everyone's doing that, you need a pattern interrupt. You need to do the opposite. You need to do something else. And so that Gong measured PBOs and non-PBOs, and it found certain statistics. But the problem with the Gong research is they never test my data. Never once in the system. And from a heuristics viewpoint, they're tending to test identical heuristics. They're like, let's test all these subservient PBOs. These are like all supplicated, sycophantic PBOs. And like, here's the ones that work better. I'm like, it's all weak, like weak against weak. They're not testing the strong force of like equal business stature and these more high status openers, which also fits in with Sandler, like disc profile and high D people. Like all CEOs just get to the point. A lot of how I learned this is I would write like a 3-page email to my CEO and he'd be like, rad. Or I would write this huge write-up on a division of a sales team I was running, and he's like, hey, by the way, like if you send me more than 3 bullet points, I'm just never gonna respond. And then I just see all this wacky CEO that looks like text messages and it's all grammatically funky, and I just encourage people just to write like that. Like there's a lot of formality. Hey, I head up the relationship with your account, and we had a conversation with Jesse Turley, and we talked about bullet point 1, 2, 3, and at the very end of the email is the point. They just like bury the lead here. I'm like, Bill, Jesse on your team said we should test the API call. Do you agree? Just boom, right down to the point. I love that. No one is direct. That's the other weird thing.
Yeah. Justin, this has been awesome. Always great to have your perspective. And before I let you go, we like to do a little segment called rapid fire questions, where I'm going to throw a few questions at you. Just give us your short first take on them. And so first, what's the one thing that people don't give enough value or attention to in leadership?
Wow. I think like humility and the growth mindset, leaders that want to create other leaders. It's definitely in that Carol Dweck book.
Mhm.
Like the leader really is the culture. Like I'll quote Tony Hughes on that. But if you don't have a good leader of your division or your company or where you work, like that's just gonna be like Lord of the Flies. So the leadership is almost as important as product market fit and the upside of your commission. So toxic leaders can tend to affect everything. I have clients like, Oh, I went there, I had the big, like a micromanaging CEO, and I just thought, oh, I'll just do it anyway. The money was so good. He was out like 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point. What's one skill you'd advise everyone in sales to master, leaders or non-leaders?
Definitely cold calling, even though it seems like a totally dying breed, but I'd call C-level cold calling. Like finding people that you're afraid of. It should feel like wingsuited base jumping or trying to learn a backflip off a high dive. It should be hard. This isn't simple calling, like, oh, just call everybody in account and map it. Find the biggest account you have, the one you could blow up, and find the most powerful person in it and call that person. And if you get butterflies and sweaty palms and you're afraid, good. Feel the fear, do it anyway. So it's a very cold call. And oftentimes those people are more gracious and they remember being younger and when they were doing similar stuff, because a lot of the C-suite came out of sales. So they're often humble and cooler, but I just find people just taking the easy route. Like they're doing some calls. If it's an inbound, there's already a discussion. That's what I think we need.
Nice. Favorite business leadership or sales book?
Oh, wow. There's so many good ones. The one that's coming to mind now is called 4 Disciplines of Execution. I think it's a Franklin Covey book. It was a big hit at Salesforce Exact Target Market Cloud way back in the day in Indianapolis, but it has this thing called the WIG, the Wildly Important Goal. I like books that have proactivity and 80-20 and power laws because I find that's very rare. So that 4DX, 4 Disciplines of Execution, it's a very good one.
Awesome. Favorite quote, mantra, or saying that inspires you?
Yeah, so I share this on a lot of calls and I saw someone else do it, but I have this concept called pronoia. It's a made up word. It's the opposite of paranoia. So paranoia is like you're worried bad things will happen. Pronoia is the universe is plotting to do you good. And I think that's like the kind of optimism. I've literally been selling since I was 21, 25 years. It's a brutality. There's so much rejection. And I think why I succeeded is even when I'm in a trough or a slump, I'm still having a good day. I'm still positive. I never internalize that. I'm always like, oh, I'm one email away from a yes. I'm just a day away from, and then clusters of closes come in. I'm sitting around sending DMs on my phone, hitting pronoia, being like, okay, nothing's happening. And then $80,000 comes in. You know what it's like. So you have to be paranoid about the deals and pressure test them. Like only the paranoid will survive. This is the paradox. It's 2 competing motions, right? You have to pressure test your pipeline, but you have to be so optimistic and have pronoia about your future and getting to your number and being able to build up your business.
Love it. And lastly, what's the most important goal or project you're working on right now, Justin?
I'm a river to my people. I'm quoting Lawrence of Arabia here. My dad loved that movie. But the thing I love most in my life is when my clients go to President's Club or they do their first ever $100,000 a month or whatever it is, $50,000 a month, they hit a target. Not only are they using the techniques, we've customized them, but then they become unconsciously competent and they get the goal. And so that's what I enjoy most in my life and my career is your results. And even if it's random, someone I've never seen leaves a review on Amazon. And it's anonymous, I can't even find it. And they're like, oh, I just had the best quarter of my life because of this book. And that's the legacy. So that's why I do it. And that's why I don't really scale. I'm not trying to build an empire or a franchise I'm like a little carpenter. And Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, right? The real holy grail wasn't the gilded one. I'm simple. Your results are what power me, essentially.
That's awesome, Justin. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast here, sharing your experience, your knowledge. And if people want to connect with you online, learn more about your work, how do they find you?
Simple. I'm on LinkedIn, Justin Michael. You can't miss me. And on Amazon, I have 10 plus books. So just look up Justin Michael, any country on earth. And I wrote too many books.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. This was a great episode, Justin. Great conversation. Appreciate you being here. Everyone, you can hit me up on LinkedIn, share some guests you'd like to see, any questions you might have. Until next time, thanks so much.
Bye.